Hello, hello. Welcome to the club. Today we are having a conversation with Bryn Bamber, who is studying everything about money, financial debt, and how this stems back to childhood trauma, or rather, how childhood trauma can show up in adult money wounds. And she is the creator of P on Cash. It is a workshop that introduces kinky somatic tools to radically change your dynamic with money, right? So instead of having this submissive dynamic with money, she does these tools to help you change that dynamic to dominate money, to become the dominatrix of your financial situation, of your credit, of the way that you deal with money, earn money, use money. And so this workshop actually went viral on TikTok. It has, I think I saw 1 million views the last time I saw you post about it.
I mean, I think collectively I have 1 million views among TikTok, among several different TikToks.
Yeah, which is amazing, right? So we know that this, her techniques, this very unique way, and as we love to do in the club, unhinged workshops, unhinged ways of approaching old problems with new solutions, because we know that the old paradigm, the old techniques, they're not working anymore. They are insufficient to only target strategy without somatic work. And this is part of why we also created the club, is because when we approach a problem using a diversity of tools and a diversity of voices, we get richer solutions. We get better, more comprehensive solutions. And I love what all the women inside the club are creating. And this is why Bryn is also introducing this workshop, because you can't get more unhinged than dominatrix and kinky somatic tools to change your relationship to money. So I'm going to hand over to Bryn, who's going to explain the story behind it, how her childhood trauma showed up in her money wounds, and then her solutions to how she changes her relationship to money. And then she's also embarked on a 10-year study of money and finances and so many things that we're going to dive into by the end of this workshop. So she's also got very deep research behind this as well. So stick around to the end, because you are going to learn so much and change and become the dominatrix over your money. So Bryn, introduce us to what you do, how this created, and how this all started.
Yeah, so I just have my tools here. So I just want to do a little demo to start. Ooh. So I don't know if anyone's listening on audio. I'm holding cash. It's Canadian money. It's why some of it's purple. I have a belt.
Oh.
And I'm just hitting it with the belt. So it was in front of me. I couldn't help it. So that's one of the kinky tools you can use with money. But where this started actually was I was taking a spiritual business course. We were looking at how time isn't real and nothing's real, and doing all these different prompts and listening to videos of Tibetan Buddhist monks chanting and meditating on the meaning of the void, and doing all this spiritual work. And so I started to apply this work to money and debt. How is money not as real as we think it is? How is debt not as real as we think it is? And I had a lot of breakthroughs of just seeing how, if I wanted to give you $5,000 right now, I could send that to you through PayPal or whatever. But if I wanted to give you 5 pounds of muscle, I can't. So money is more flexible. You can lose all your money overnight. You can get a huge inheritance overnight. Whereas if I want to run a marathon, I probably have to train every day for 6 months or maybe even more. I've never run a marathon to get there. So money can change a lot more quickly, but the way we think about it, we kind of think about it the way we think about gold or something, even though money right now is not, in most systems, it's not backed by gold anymore. So it's this much more flexible thing that even governments can create, right?
Yeah.
So I was journaling, right? Having all these epiphanies, writing. And then I was like walking home from one of these sessions, and it just landed in my brain, like, what if you applied kink to money? I don't know where it came from, this guy. And I talked to someone else on the course who is more in the kink world. And she said, well, you could tie cash up with a rope. You could whip it with a belt, like I just demonstrated. You could pee on money. And when she said pee on money, I felt tingles all over my body, and I wanted to do it. And I also felt shame almost, because it was like, I want to do it, but that's weird. There's something wrong with me. And so eventually I just like got whatever crumpled $20 bill was in my wallet, put it in the bathtub, squatted, peed on it, and I fucking loved it. Like, I loved the experience. I felt, I don't know, powerful. And for me, I had to people please my parents to get my needs met as a child. And so when I got my first job, I was people pleasing my boss to make money, and it worked. I got raises, I got promotions. I also burnt out in my early 20s, like really young, and quit and moved to an ashram. And anyways, that's a whole nother long story. But I had gone through life like getting the resources, any resource that I need, through people pleasing, starting with my parents, moving to boss, but even in friendships, in all of my relationships, and in my relationship with money. And I was even people pleasing financial planners I'd never met, right? Like, I would read Barbara Stanning's book, Overcoming Under Earning. And then I'd be like, what would Barbara do? Like, what should I do with my budget? How would Barbara do it? As opposed to trusting my own instincts, I'm people pleasing this person I've never even met and who doesn't even know I exist. So for me, when I peed on money, it just switched that power dynamic. It switched me from this more submissive position with money of, I don't know what to do, the experts know, or I have to people please my boss, to this place of, I am a steward of this money. I am a steward of this wealth. And there's a process, right? You pee on money, and then you have to wash it, and then you have to lie it to dry. And for me, like, by the end of the process, I would just feel love for the money. So yeah, it really was powerful for me. And I started to, see things happen where it's like, I got a free plane ticket to Vegas, and, some of my clients had some big financial wins, and I could see how it was starting to shift in my own life. But actually, initially, I didn't want to tell anyone. Yeah. Like, I didn't know how to tell my friends. Like, what do you do? Like, call your friend and be like, hey, so what did you do last weekend? Well, I peed on cash. So I had to first get over that hurdle. I texted a friend and I said, I did something weird and I want to tell you, but I'm not ready yet. And then she like responded very kindly. And then I was like ready to tell her. So I slowly started telling people. And then I started, a little while after that, I posted about it on TikTok. And then one of those videos started to go viral. People started to call me names, like calling me like a bioterrorist. And then I went into another complete shame spiral because I was just like, oh my God, 10,000 people have seen this. Oh my God, 20,000 people have seen, 100,000 people have seen this. Like, I just deleted TikTok. I was like, I can't handle this, because it went viral. Some people really loved it. Some people really hated it. And so that was another process of processing the shame and, you know, having my own back. And it's funny, my friend who I talked through the different kinky tools with initially, she was like, just use Lysol. Just tell the bioterrorist people, like, use Lysol. Like, we're not about, and now the way I see it, I'm like, the money comes out clean. If after we pee on it, it comes out cleaner. It comes in, it's probably all dirty. No one's cleaned it in a while. We're doing a service for the country. Yeah, so it's been a journey, and then after that, I started to teach these kinky rituals for wealth, and I've added other rituals, because it's not about doing what I do, it's doing whichever one is going to bring you tingles. I am more drawn to the dominant one. Some people are more drawn to the submissive one. So I taught an in-person workshop in Montreal on this in January. And at that workshop, someone was like, you know, I think I'm more maybe on the submissive side or the masochistic side of this. I don't know what to do. Can you tell me what to do? And I was like, I don't know what to do, but can you be the demo person for the workshop? He agreed. And anyways, we had a bunch of cash for this workshop. So I just gave him like $500 to hold in his hand and close. And the first step, like if people want to do this, just listening to the podcast at home, the first step, you just hold money and you just see, do you want it closer to you or do you want it further away? Like, you'll know, this is a somatic process. We're working with the body. Do you like holding it? Like, some people just don't even want to hold it. They want to throw it. Anyways, he held the money. He closed his eyes. He was like, I know exactly what I want to do within like 10 seconds. I know exactly what I want to do. I want my hands tied behind my back. I want to be on my knees. And I want you to hold the money just above my mouth. And I want to try to bite it. And so it's really about finding what your like pleasure or tingles or what makes you laugh. That's probably the one you want to do. Like, sometimes I'll tell people about peeing on money. They just burst out laughing. I'm like, oh, you might want to do it. So yeah, that's how it started. And now, you know, a lot of people have done it just from the online stuff, and then through the workshops and finding their own way. So it's really powerful. And what I find people say a lot is it just is a more lighthearted way to deal with our money blocks, as opposed to, I mean, there's so much good work on money blocks, and I think it's all good and important, but this way is very playful and it can work very quickly if you're ready to try it out.
Yeah, I love this. And I love some of the things that you've said, like, you know, changing this power dynamic, right? And what you're saying, like, although it is also changing the somatic, it's very physical too. And I think that really combines and does deep work. And especially when you're connecting with something that is so empowering for people, can be empowering for people, something sexual. Like when we are in our sexuality, regardless, like you say, now I understand whether you choose to be submissive or dominant, being in that sexuality feels empowering regardless of which way. So it really connects this somatic with a very physical feeling. So I love that, right? You know, most somatic work is like, you have to do the mental work. But actually, I like it. It's like you're kind of biohacking somatic work by tapping into something that naturally can be sparked inside of us. So I can see now why it would be such a radical and fast way to change a somatic dynamic. And so that's very interesting. And it really resonated with me when you talked about submission to money as well, because you're right. Like people who grow up with lack or who don't have much money or who were constantly behind in money we don't take, and I say we because this was my childhood too, we don't take a dominant approach to money, to investing, to financing, right? Like how they always say the rich get richer. You know, they'll take out a loan to invest in something that will return money, right? And when I hear these things, I'm like, wow, I do not have a dominant relationship to money. I'm not that actor in the money. I am the just waiting for money to happen to me. So,
Right.
you know, so tell me a little bit about also what you've seen in the research and your story behind this connection.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing is that folks socialized as women, there's research on the way we're taught about money. So one study was women's magazines, men's magazines. And first of all, men's magazines had more articles overall about money.
Interesting.
Investing, that kind of thing. Then, secondly, women's magazines, when they talked about money, it was about scrimping, saving, couponing, borrowing from your parents, all the things you kind of talked about, where you're really budgeting, take very good care of the money because it's hard to get more. Whereas the men's magazines were about investing, asking for a raise, like ways of earning, bringing more money into the household, as opposed to just taking care of the small pile of money that you don't have an opportunity to grow. So I think that's definitely part of it, is that we have been or anyone socialized as a woman has been taught that just take care of it. And I saw a post recently by Eleanor Beaton, who's a women's business coach here in Canada. She's great if anyone wants to follow her. But she was saying how, like, kind of similar to what I was saying, but she was saying how that impacts female entrepreneurs. Because in entrepreneurship, often you have to hire the employee before you have the money to hire them. You have to build the system before it's ready. You know, like you, from a brick and mortar perspective, right? If you're going to have a shoe store, you have to fill it up with shoes. You have to hire all the staff. You haven't earned $1 yet. And so, how the socialization from our childhood can like negatively impact us as entrepreneurs, because we aren't willing to take some of the risks that folks socialized as men have basically been taught to take. So I think that's part of it. And then, yeah, the childhood relationship with money is so whatever you were taught to get your needs met as a child is often your default relationship with money. So some children actually had to dominate their parents, right? Let's take the example. It's like, maybe it's an alcoholic household or something, things are getting crazy. Maybe the child has to get really big and strong and yell at people and be more dominant to get their needs met. Some of us had to people please our parents to get our needs met. Some of us had to be perfect, right? If straight A's, all of that, to get the love and attention from our parents or caregivers. Some of us had to be super loyal to the family. So there are all these survival strategies. And anyone listening, you can try to think about which one applies to you. I forgot one. The last one is like sometimes you have to disappear, right? You have to kind of dissociate and get quiet and disappear to be safe, to get your needs met as best you can. So whatever pattern from childhood is probably your default relationship with money, because it's like, this is how I got food as a child, right? This is how I got love, attention. These are all things we pay for as adults. Obviously, you don't always pay for love, but you do in the sense that if you go to a really nice hotel, they're going to know your name. They're going to learn all about you. They hire these people who are very caring and kind. Whereas if you think about like a cheap motel, they might not even look at you at the desk. So in some ways we are also paying for love. So whatever that pattern was has a strong neural pathway in your brain. So you're going to just keep going with that, and just until we start to do some of these different healing modalities or some of this kinky work or whatever you choose, we're usually in that default.
Yeah, that's fascinating too, actually. And if I think about what you just said, right, like how this relationship, how it's hard to earn love, right? How we have to be so perfect before we will earn love. Like as you were speaking, I was like, oh my gosh, that is my exact narrative to money, that it is hard to earn money, that I must work so much and be so perfect, and that I'm still not good enough to earn money. So as you were speaking, I was like, yes, I can see how my childhood wounds and relationships are tied to my relationship with money. And it's interesting because although this could relate to anyone with childhood trauma, we do also see that, women are often the ones who are the nurturers, or the ones who were told to be quiet, or the ones who had to keep emotional peace by abandoning themselves, right? By not having a reaction, by not having a tantrum, right? We just had to be quiet, accept what we received, and try so hard to even just get a little bit more of it, or a shred more of that. So yeah, I could definitely relate to how these childhood traumas relate to the money, and especially how this can even show up with women. And going back to that other point as well, right? Like then we see, this financial abuse, right? Which also we're coming from a history where however many decades ago, women weren't allowed to have bank accounts, for example, right? Or they couldn't even, live as a spinster or an old maid because they couldn't earn money, right? So besides the trauma that comes from that, you're right. Now we have this changing landscape where lots of women are saying, okay, I'm burning out in the corporate environment. The masculine day-to-day productivity doesn't match my, menstrual cycle or my monthly energy, right? They're burning out and they're throwing themselves into business, but without the proper risk taking, without the proper kind of structure. And I am guilty of this too, right? Starting a business and then I'm like, wait, you need investment for this. But the fact that I started the business without thinking, wait, I can get a loan. Why aren't I getting a loan? So like, I also like that, right? This difference of mentality that we don't even think about it.
Right. And with a business, right, if you incorporate and then you get a loan through your corporate structure. I mean, don't quote me on every country about this, but then if the incorporated businesses are considered people, right? Then your business can go bankrupt and it doesn't impact your personal finances. I mean, it does if you probably have invested your own money and time into it. So it's not that there's no impact, but there are these like legal structures to encourage you to get that loan because you are protected. You're not gonna have the bankruptcy, all the repercussions of that affect your personal ability to get a credit card or get a mortgage or whatever in your own life. And yet, like I know this now. When I started my business, I had no, I don't know. I mean, I guess I was a little bit delusional starting my business. I totally was. And threw myself into the fire and have been learning along the way, which is, it's a good way to learn, right? trial by fire. You do learn a lot quickly. But yeah, all of the things that you're saying is right. And I think impacts I think women are more strongly impacted by a lot of these things. And yeah, it's like, even what's in the women's magazines, it's like, in some ways, like, of course, those were the articles of yore, because we weren't allowed to invest. We weren't allowed to earn. We weren't allowed to have a bank account. And the men, so it's like the articles that we're getting, which I think is just a representation of what is being told to men versus women. Even when you're 12, your mom tells you this is where you get the good coupons or whatever. And if you're a guy, maybe your dad is telling you about the stock market when you're 12, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's like, historically, it makes sense that we've divided it this way because that's the way the laws were not that long ago. But yeah, now everything has shifted, but we're often still in these patterns.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love this because something I study a lot is the feminine narratives that impact the way that we see ourselves, right? So it's fascinating, this magazine research you've done, that even that the women's magazines were talking about saving, scrimping, and coupons. The mentality is so different than, the male magazines being invest, how to make more money, this very power dynamic versus this submissive dynamic of like, if you're lucky, you'll get $20 off.
Right. And the other thing that's very practical that, I talk to my clients about is that saving, budgeting, there's a limit. You can only cut your budget so much. You can only coupon to a certain degree. Whereas earning potential, there isn't a limit, right? I mean, I'm not saying everyone can make $1 million in 20 seconds, but in general, yeah, what's your earning? I think a lot of people don't think, what's my earning potential over the next 20 years? And, your earning potential is probably bigger than you think. And so that's a lever that has more flexibility. The budgeting, the scrimping, not that it's bad, and some people don't do it at all, and maybe they need to put some of that into place. But this other side, like this side, we can only save we're going to hit a wall at some point. But this side has kind of infinite capacity.
I love that. Right. So we're even getting this limiting money belief, because you're right. There's a limit to saving and budgeting, right? It's not about earning. It's within what you already have, how to, clutch to it. And a lot of, the money somatic work that all the workshops do right now is how to increase your capacity to hold more wealth, right? And it's resonated a lot with me too, because I'm like, I don't even think sometimes about what comes with increasing that capacity to think beyond the limits of my earning potential. And even, when you were talking before about, expanding our money, expanding our wealth, and the approach, like even just thinking about that, right? Like not coming from how do I survive? How do I thrive using money? Where money works for me, I don't work for money.
For sure. Yeah, it's a tool. And I think like we're also socialized as women to believe, don't be greedy, don't be selfish. We're taught to give everything for free. You should be generous. You should be kind. And that is another huge money block, I think, for women, is that if you ask to be paid, or God forbid, paid well for your time and your efforts, you are seen as greedy, or your head's getting too big, or all of these insults start to come on. Even like the insult of diva, right? It's like, if a woman says, this is what I need, I'm you hear it applied to singers, right? And these women are saying, this is what I need to perform really well for an audience full of like 40,000 people. I need this exact drink. I need this. I need this. I need this. And then that can be seen and labeled sometimes as diva behavior, when it's like, dude, they're going on stage and they're bringing joy, or they're bringing something, to all these ticket holders who bought tickets to see them. They're allowing them to grieve if they sing sad song, like it's an emotional release often when we go to see music. And then it's like, oh, I can't believe she needs this exact thing in her dressing room. It's like, of course she does. And why are we judging someone taking care of themselves well before earning a lot of money for everyone involved, and giving this gift to the people who bought tickets? So I think, that's another piece of the puzzle. And I think that's another piece of entrepreneurship, right? Mm-hmm. You have to, like I say about my line of work, it's like, I got my first 10,000 hours like before the age 16, right? Of like helping people regulate their emotions. And my first 10,000 hours were unpaid at home. I was the de facto family therapist or whatever as a child, and listening to my mom's problems with my dad, and then my dad's problem, listening to everybody, taking care of everybody. And I think a lot of, if you're a service provider, that might be you too. You got a lot of your coaching practice when you were young. And then we want to start to charge for this thing that we used to give away for free. And then it can feel very selfish, especially it's like, oh, this comes naturally to me, and I actually like doing it, and And so maybe I shouldn't charge, or I should charge this really low rate, where it's like, even, Taylor Swift loves writing songs, but she also charges for them. She doesn't just give everything away for free. I mean, you can stream her songs for free, I guess, on Spotify in 2026. You don't have to buy an album anymore. But she has these structures around it. So she does get paid for the work that she does. So I think that's another hurdle we have to overcome as entrepreneurs, as saying, oh, am I selfish? Should I give this for free? Shouldn't I? And when I'm working with people actually on like pricing stuff, one of the things I do say is like, it's an experiment, right? Like, try raising your rates and see, try raising it $20, or try doubling your rate. Whatever experiment you want to run that experiment. Know that certain experiments you might lose more clients, right? If you double your price. I actually at one point like doubled my price. I was people pleasing my clients, right? So I had a big spreadsheet. Everyone was paying a different amount. I had 6 session packages, 12 session packages, and also 13 session packages, because I was just people pleasing out the wazoo. And so at one point I raised my rate a lot. So for some people it's doubling, for some people it's like 5 timesing their rate, because they had started with me when I charged like $30 an hour as a student, before I graduated as a student practitioner. And so when I did that, I felt really good about it. It took me a long time to do it. And I also gave my clients, because of the kind of work that I do, I gave everyone like 6 months notice. I was like, you have 6 more months with me paying the rate that you're on, so that if we are closing our time together, we have time to do that, not rushed. And I raised my rates, and a lot of people quit. Which makes sense, right? Like, if you're going from paying $30 an hour and suddenly I want like my new package, it was like $300 an hour. Like, it's, I guess that's 10 times. That's crazy. So of course, a lot of them quit, and some of them quit, but then came back down the road, and that was good. But one of the things that was powerful too was like, I found that some of my clients we had kind of gotten to a routine where things were just routine. That really shifted things, and it was hard for some clients, and some clients were mad at me or whatever, but it really brought a lot of life back into those sessions, so that we were doing deeper work in the last 6 months if they were. So I guess all that to say, if you double your rates, you have a greater chance of losing more people, but it's all experiments. And if you were taught to be a people pleaser, we have to just practice not people pleasing, and we're not going to do it well, right? We're not going to set our rates exactly perfectly, but you can always change it. You can always shift things down the road, and it's like building a new muscle group, right? Because our boundaries, if you're people pleasing, your boundaries muscles are probably pretty atrophied. Your even sense of worth muscles atrophied. So we're trying to get to the gym and work those muscles out and see what happens and figure it out.
Yeah, I love that actually, because you're right? It's like, as we increase, we're not used to charging money. We're not used to saying, this is what I'm worth. And so, yeah, the nervous system, it takes a while to build that capacity to feel safe again, right? To be asking for this money, right? To take this dominant approach and be like, you know what? I'm doing this, right? And there's nothing more empowering than raising your rates. And I loved what you were saying before as well, right? Like that, we were taught to feel greedy, to ask for more, right? And that so ties with shame. And so I like as well, when I think about how you were explaining that, when you even started talking about this on TikTok, and then people started shaming you, it was as if increasing your capacity instantly triggered shame, right? It's like, oh, shame around sexuality, shame around money, shame around speaking up. And they're all tied together. That's why I think I really wanted to talk to you about this today, because they're all tied together. And so approaching it from this sexual angle, where so much shame can be released, right? That at the same time releases shame around our needs and getting our needs met, which directly relates to shame for asking more. And as you were saying about diva, I was like, is there even a male counterpart to the word diva? No, there isn't, right? So we don't even perceive men who ask for more or who make demands. We don't even judge them. There is no word. I mean, unless, if anyone's listening, if there is a word, please obviously drop it in the chat. I could not think of a word right now of a counterpart to diva. And it's like we're talking about before, even how the magazines were about coupons. There's no male counterpart to diva. We are constantly receiving these messages that, no, don't ask for more. That is shameful. You are greedy. And of course, then we often then shrink back into our quiet little self. So that's why I do. I mean, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go get some belts and slap something, right? Like, let's do this.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely try it out. And yeah, I guess maybe if it would be helpful, I can talk a little bit about processing the shame if it comes out for folks if they try this.
Yeah. Let's talk about the shame, the sexual connection, the somatic. Yeah. Tell us some more.
Yeah. So for me, like, yeah, shame has been a part of this process, right? From day one, when I was like, I can't tell my friends. Yeah. So when I teach this work, I try to teach some tools to process shame. And these tools apply to shame about the sexuality part, the money part, the selfishness part. All of this, is shrouded in shame. So yeah, I like to give a few tools for folks. So I guess I love Brené Brown, Dr. Brené Brown's work on shame. She has 2 TED Talks. I recommend them both if you like TED Talks, or she talks about some of her research on this. But one of the pieces of research is that shame thrives in silence and secrecy. So if you, let's say Casey, let's say you whip cash tomorrow with a belt, you try it out, and then you have some shame come up around it. One of the things you can do is, obviously you can text me, you can tell me, but tell someone you trust. It doesn't always have to be like a therapist or a coach. Therapists and coach and somatic practitioners are great people to tell because they're typically trained in how to do this. But tell a friend who you know is not going to shame you more, right? That's the kind of the qualified. You don't want to say, oh my God, I feel shame about this, and have someone say, ugh, what is wrong with you? So finding someone that you trust to just tell them, hey, I did this thing, or even I want to do this thing, but I feel weird about doing it. And just getting that face to face. You can do it on the phone, obviously, tone of voice, but that soothes our nervous system. And part of that is because shame is like the fear of getting kicked out of the village, right? Our brains are 40,000 years old. So back in the day, getting kicked out of the village, you could die, right? If you're exiled from your community, the repercussions are really high. So that's why shame sometimes does feel like death. Like it can be very overwhelming. And that's one of the reasons getting this social contact around it and knowing, oh my God, I told Casey about this thing that I'm ashamed of. And Casey said, I get it, or like, that's cool, or like whatever, something nice. She's not giving me dagger eyes. She's not saying, what's wrong with you? It starts to tell my nervous system, oh, I'm not getting kicked out of the village. Oh, I'm safe. Oh, maybe what I did is not the most repulsive, disgusting thing on planet Earth. And I'm not going to lose my whole community because of that. Another tool for shame that I like the Tibetan Buddhist practice of Tonglen. This is a practice where you just literally feel the shame. Let's say you have like a black tar on your heart. And on the inhale, you welcome the black tar, and you let it get as big as the shame wants to get. And then on the exhale, you relax any part of your body that's ready to relax. So maybe the black tar is not ready to relax, but maybe your butt cheeks could relax, or the soles of your feet could relax, or your neck could relax. And you just do that for a few breaths. Inhaling, welcoming the feeling, letting it be exactly as big as it wants to be, letting it take up space. Exhaling, relaxing the parts of your body that are ready to relax. That can be a really powerful tool too. And then another tool that helps our body complete the stress cycle is like exercise. Any exercise that you like, right? So if you like to go for walks, go for a walk. If you like dancing, put on music and dance. If you like to swim, swim. In the olden days, right, you would maybe like see a tiger, get really scared, run away from the tiger. A villager would open the door. You would come in, slam the door. You would see them look in their eyes. And you would start to feel better. And we think we feel better just because the tiger's gone, but you actually feel better because you ran, you got some eye contact. Maybe the person gave you a hug. So there are these other physical ways that we can process the shame.
I love that. And that is actually going to be very useful to add as well to what you've just said, right? You know, because if people are going to do these kinky somatic tools, dominatrix tools, you know, yes, you're right. Even as you were saying, like, imagine that me personally would go and whip something and maybe I'd feel shame. And I was like, you're right. I probably actually would feel initial shame just doing that, right? Just being like, okay, I'm dominating the situation, or something that is normally shrouded in secrecy, right? How much have we actually also tied sex to shame, especially with women, right? So it's not even our money blocks and our money wounds. We're also, think of like women were told back in England, right? Just lay back and think of England, just be of service, right? Like, you know, like we weren't even taught to enjoy it. And so I love this connection, right? It's such a powerful connection that you've made here.
Yeah. It's like again, the word slut usually applies to women. The word whore, if it's a guy, it's like a man whore. Woman is just a regular whore. Like,
exactly.
So many of these terms have been used to shame, in some ways, pleasure, right? And that pleasure can lead us so many beautiful places. And I think that's what's so cool about the kink work, is that we're actually chasing pleasure in our relationship with money. And sometimes we get pleasure from hurting money because of our childhoods and everything. That's our first entryway into pleasure in our relationship with money. So yeah, I think this is all connected and all connected to shame.
Yeah. Because also, like when, like, sexual pleasure as well is attending to our own needs, which many of us were raised to believe was wrong, right? So even sexually saying, no, me first, right? Or my money first, or being greedy or saying I deserve money. And, you know, another thing as well is that one thing I notice as well is that it often happens among women, right? So even I was talking about this week, inviting people to our feminine storytelling club. And I didn't say if it was free or paid. I just said, who wants to join a feminine storytelling club? And then I wrote to a woman you know, you get a free trial, and I give so much, and, you know, I'm not taking anything. But of course, it costs money to run a club. It costs money just for the tools I have to pay. And she wrote back and she's like, shame on you. How is this a feminine storytelling club? And her
because
it's paid. She's like, how dare you how is this feminine when you're charging money? And I was like, now, as we learn in this world, the more that you actually start to dominate your situations, you don't take responsibility for other people's response. And I was like, oh, honey, that is your money wound, not mine.
Right. But that's exactly what we're talking about. And that's exactly why when you raise your price, some people might shame you. When you charge at all, some people might try to shame you, and they're going to shame you more often than they would shame a man for charging the same price. So yeah, if it was a masculine storytelling club, would she have said that?
Exactly right. And actually, yeah, coming back to this, like this other point as well, like, what was I going to say? The shame around charging more, right? That a lot of these gifts, right? A lot of the feminine gifts, right? This nurture, holding space for people, holding space for people's meltdowns, their emotional responses, for them to treat you badly, for them to emotionally abuse you, right? It was expected that women just hold this space for free, right? Women have been dumped with emotional labor. And this is also kind of part of what I'm doing in the club. I try to revalue feminine gifts as equal to masculine. Because if we say, okay, if me holding space for your emotional tantrum is equal to me doing 1 hour of output, right, then I deserve to charge $300 for that. But it's because we have devalued these feminine gifts. We say, no, that should be for free. And we only value the masculine. Then exactly like you say, right? We have grown up doing this for free. We have already done our 10,000 hours before we're even teenagers. And so when you start to think like, oh no, this is a job, this is work, and I deserve to be paid for it, and then asking for money for something that people just assume you should do for free. And this is exactly like, I get so triggered when I see more women, discounting them. And we've all done it. As a new business, you do have to do those freebies and those discounts. Or sometimes I'll just see people being like $7 reading. And I'm like, no, please stop this. Like, because they're so scared. They're so ashamed to even ask for $7 to use their innate feminine gifts, which should be equalized to masculine gifts.
Well, and then that impacts the market, right? If you can get a reading for $7 or $300 or $1,000, then the market shifts. And we see this, there's research on this. When women enter a profession, the wages often drop. When it's like, teaching now. Teaching used to be all men, right? Women weren't allowed to get paid for work. Women were always allowed to work. We just weren't allowed to earn money.
Right.
So they weren't allowed to be teachers. It was all male teachers. Then women enter the profession. Then that profession doesn't earn as much. So you can see that. And because I'm in the somatics world, and I do a little bit of teaching at the Canadian Counseling and Psychotherapy Association. I teach some somatics to them. So I'm kind of in with therapists sometimes. And therapy, right? People are like, oh, what's your sliding scale? What's your equity? Blah, blah, blah. And so one of the comparisons I made, therapy is not covered by healthcare. Healthcare in Canada is pretty good. Covers a lot of stuff. But it doesn't cover therapy, and it didn't used to cover the dentist. They just actually rolled out a dental plan for us, or for people who are at a certain income level. But yeah, I was just thinking, have you ever heard of a dentist having a sliding scale?
Exactly.
Whereas, not every therapist, but many therapists are asked, oh, what's your sliding scale? Oh, are you doing this? Can I get it for free? Can I get it for low cost? And again, it's because there's more female therapists, and in dentists, it's more men. So they're not expected to do this bend over back. So, I think I'm just having this breakthrough too. Like when that person charges $7, they fuck all the card readers, which are probably majority women.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't see that. You say, oh, I'm being generous giving this for $7. But really, it's like, no, you're fucking our market over.
I love that. Yes, it's so true, right? We all have to raise each other up by charging what we're worth. I love what has come out of just that right now. Yes, I didn't even look at it like that before. And you're right, it is devaluing us constantly. And then for the people who are charging $300, then people devalue them because they're like, wow, someone's doing it for $7. So you're not worth it.
What are you doing? Yeah. And someone really good is doing it for $7, right?
They're amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing, I wanted to share some of my recent findings about money and debt and stuff. So I have been, as you said, like on this self-study research project for the past couple of years, just trying to learn as much as I can. And so one of the things I've been learning recently is that debt actually, it seems like historically debt came first. So in Babylon, there were farmers, but then they would need like fertilizer. They would need like certain equipment. So they would borrow, it wasn't money, I guess, but they would borrow from this other class that would, help them access the fertilizer and what they needed. And then when the crop reaped its harvest, they would pay it back. They would give a bushel of apples or wheat or whatever they were growing. So that was actually the first concept, or one of the first concepts of money. In economic textbooks, they teach this barter system where there was like a market and people like had decided to use coins. But apparently that's not in the historical record that we know of. And that this was more likely the first kind of form of money was actually starting on the debt side. And what they realized in Babylon was that sometimes there's a locust, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes your crop doesn't go as well. And so as time went on, typically the lenders would get richer and the farmers would get poorer because they would have a bad year, so their debt would increase. So they would do this thing periodically called a jubilee, where they would wipe all the slates clean. So a new king would be taken into power and they would have a jubilee, and everyone started fresh because it wasn't fair to have the system the way that we have it. So that is really interesting. And so it starts to help us see when people say, oh, we want to wipe out student loan, we want to forgive all these student loans. Like that isn't as radical of an idea as we think. Actually, the first form of debt, they would do that periodically to reset things and to make the society function and the farmers be able to get fertilizer for the next year, because we all do need to eat. We need them to get access to that fertilizer and grow our crops for our community. And so it actually uplifts the entire society when we wipe, when people are not so impoverished. And then, so I was watching this documentary yesterday called Finding the Money, and I literally am still like getting this into my brain because it's kind of, shaking things up for me. But basically the documentary is talking about in the US, there's this huge focus on the deficit. They have this national debt clock in New York City, and it's like $30 trillion, and it just keeps going up and up. And a lot of politicians will say, oh, well, we can't, look how much debt we're in. We can't afford that. We can't afford this. But actually, the thing about the US government is it's not like my budget or your budget, right? If I had $30 trillion in debt, or even $30 million, like it would be very, very stressful. But the US government can print money. Mm. They are the issuer of the currency. So the way that money is created is it used to be, printed, right? And these were created. We still do that. A lot of it is just on a computer now, right? We don't even print enough of these for everything that's on the computer. Nothing's backed by gold. So they have to spend money, and then that money goes into the economy. And then the way they get the money back is through tax. That's almost the only way that the money comes back to the government. So if they spend money on roads, on hospitals, on whatever, and then they tax it back, if they tax back the exact same amount, then the budget is balanced at zero. But what that means is that the citizens and the businesses of the country have less. When the government has a deficit, it means either private companies or private citizens have more money. Because if they, to make it really simple, if they were to spend just $100, let's pretend, and then they tax back 90, somebody keeps that $10. And it could be you, and it could be a small business in your town, or it could be an evil corporation, right? It's not all good. But the higher the deficit goes, that actually means there's more money circulating in the country. And if you put too much money into the country or into certain areas, you can cause inflation, right? And that is a problem. So that's what governments should be focusing on, is this, when we're spending and taxing, are we causing inflation? But the deficit is actually not a problem, and it's almost like used as a fear tactic by politicians and as like well, we can't afford to address homelessness, or we can't deal with climate change, or we can't, look at how much debt we're in. This is going to impact our children and they're going to have to pay it off. And it's like, you're paying yourself back. Like, you make money. You are the steward of this token that is called the US dollar. You make the money, so you can pay yourself back if you want to at any moment. So that I'm still like wrapping my brain around how money, it seems like money was always created by governments. It was never this mystical barter community where it's like, someone just started, because who would have started the money, right? If there's no government or there's no organizing body. So money was always created by governments, and then they are it's not like a normal balance sheet.
Yeah.
Because they can print more.
Yeah, exactly. I love this. We're so much falsities or narratives that we have around money, and how much this has become such a cornerstone for arguments, for, against, why we do things, why we don't things. And I think like that is going to have to be like a part 2, because another big thing, right? Like, besides like what we're talking about today, like breaking the feminine tie to money so that we can put more money in the hands of, I don't like to say matriarchal women, but feminine-led initiatives, right? That's my goal. But I would love to do now we have to do a part 2 on what are feminine money models, right? Mm-hmm. Because right now we have very masculine, like you said, it's held by governments, very patriarchal. Somebody at the top holds all the power of what happens all down the bottom. What happens when we create more horizontal, feminine, shared control, right? Mm-hmm. That's when we change these money dynamics. So, okay, look, I love this, right? We then see, now we've got our second part 2. We'll have to get Bryn back to share more of her money research. So I think we'll end here. This was fascinating discussion. Thank you so much for sharing, Bryn. And tell everybody like where they can find you, how can they work with you, how can they, deal with the things that we talked about today.
Yeah, so I have I can give you like my link tree or whatever, and then it'll have everything there. But I have a free workshop. It's called 8 Kinky Rituals for Wealth. So I describe 8 options. You pick the one that resonates both with you, that brings you tingles, or you create your own. Like sometimes people will watch it, but it'll spark a new idea. So you can always create your own. So you can find that in my link tree. I also offer a free 15-minute assessment. If anyone wants a free one-on-one call with me, that's also going to be there. And then I'm very active on Facebook. I don't know. I'm a millennial. I'm old. So if you want to just friend me on Facebook as if it was 2006 again, I would love that. I do have an Instagram. I do have a LinkedIn. I'm not as active on Instagram, but I'm there a little bit. Would love to just be connected, and then we can get to know each other.
Okay, that's it. That sounds good. What I'll do is I'll put the link to your the 8 kinky tools under this recording, and we'll also put it in the Exchange Hub where you can get everybody's lead generation. And so I'll also put your tags and stuff for anyone who wants to follow you. So thank you so much. So we really got so many lessons out of this today, right? How to break your submission to money by becoming dominant, and then how to break the secrecy and shame around asking for money, right? And asking for pleasure and asking to meet your needs and asking to survive, to thrive, and not just survive, right? And I loved as well how we talked about feminine narratives and how we need to break these feminine narratives. And I think as well how everybody who charges too little, like we said, yes, there is a way of that you do have to do these freebies. You do need to build relationships, yes. But if you continually devalue yourself, you devalue all of our services. So I really loved what came out of that.
Right.
We are raising.
That's a breakthrough.
That was a breakthrough. That's why I love these discussions. By the end, we always get something new. So tomorrow, we're all going to whip some cash. We're going to tell somebody about it so we feel safe in our body and we don't keep it in secrecy. And then we are all going to raise our prices. So thank you, Bryn. You can find her at Bryn_Bamber. And I think there's a 0.9 or something. So I will put all of that down. And thank you so much for talking with us today. This was so interesting. So I hope everybody breaks their money blocks and even their pleasure blocks. So thank you so much. We'll see you later. Bye, everybody.